What if everything you believe about your feelings is a lie designed to hold you back? And what if, in the next few minutes, you discovered the single skill that could dismantle that lie forever? Your emotions feel like truth. They feel like your most authentic guide. But I need you to understand something crucial. They are not. They are ancient survival mechanisms, biological alarms designed for a world of immediate physical threats that vanished thousands of years ago. In our modern world, these same emotional reactions are systematically sabotaging your career, poisoning your relationships, and locking you into cycles of frustration and underachievement. Think about the last time your emotional response cost you something valuable. What did you lose? Every single day you make choices based on a fleeting internal weather system. A critical comment arrives, and you fire back with words you can't retrieve. A wave of overwhelm hits, and you abandon a goal you deeply care about. Anxiety about a high-stakes opportunity causes you to shrink back and avoid the very thing that could transform your life. You allow a flash of anger to dictate your words, damaging a connection that took years to build. You are being piloted by chemical surges in your brain, and most of the time, you don't even see it happening. But here is the secret the most effective people on the planet have internalized. They have mastered a single capability that fundamentally alters human existence, the power of non-reaction. The ability to feel the emotion fully, to recognize its presence, and then to consciously select a response based on strategy, logic, and long-term vision, not the primal shouts of a brain that thinks it's still in the wilderness. This isn't about becoming a robot or numbing yourself. This is about reclaiming sovereignty over your life by dominating the critical gap between something happening and your answer to it. In that gap, your true power is born. By the time we finish today, you will possess a new mental framework. You will have the tools to command your emotions so they no longer command you. You will learn to maintain clarity when everything is chaotic, to make superior choices when the pressure is immense, and to forge an unbreakable inner resilience that separates the exceptional from the average. Let's begin with the hidden price you pay every time you react without thinking. Most people are completely unaware of the staggering cost of their emotional reactivity. They believe getting triggered is normal. They assume losing control under stress is just human nature. They even mistake intense emotional outbursts for passion and authenticity. This is a dangerous misconception, and it's eroding the quality of their lives in ways they can't perceive. Let me show you what this looks like in reality. You're in a crucial meeting, presenting an idea you believe in. Someone questions it in a tone that feels dismissive. Instantly, your pulse quickens. Heat floods your face. An internal narrator starts shouting about injustice and misunderstanding. Before your rational mind can intervene, you're defending your position with a sharpness that makes the entire room uneasy. You've just compromised your professional credibility in less than a minute. Was the temporary emotional release worth the long-term damage? Or perhaps you're having a minor disagreement with someone you love. They say something that touches a nerve. Instead of navigating toward a resolution, you escalate. You drag old grievances into the light. You use words as weapons because you feel hurt. In 10 minutes, a small misunderstanding has become a major conflict that will need days to heal. All because you couldn't master that initial impulse. Here is the uncomfortable reality few want to confront. Each time you react emotionally instead of responding thoughtfully, you are conditioning your brain for weakness. You are reinforcing the neural pathways that make losing control more likely next time. You are actively rewiring your own brain for conflict, for poor judgment, for regret. And the most troubling part? You're doing it to yourself by choice. The science on this is unequivocal. An emotional reaction floods your system with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. These chemicals obscure your judgment and make clear thought impossible. But here's what most miss. These hormones don't just vanish when the event is over. They linger in your body for hours, sometimes days, influencing every decision you make, every interaction you have, every thought that crosses your mind. This means one emotional reaction at breakfast can undermine your entire day. That argument with your partner affects your performance at work. That stressful message sets off a chain reaction of bad choices that impacts your whole week. You become stuck in a loop of reactivity where each outburst makes the next one more probable, but the cost cuts even deeper than daily performance. Chronic emotional reactivity physically alters your brain's architecture. Neuroimaging studies reveal that people who frequently lose emotional control have less gray matter in the prefrontal cortex. This is the region responsible for rational thought, planning, and impulse control. In simple terms, the more you react emotionally, the less capacity you have for clear, deliberate decision-making. The financial toll is immense. Consider every opportunity you've missed because you were too furious, too nervous, or too defeated to think straight. Every relationship you've strained because you couldn't hold your tongue when upset. Every objective you've abandoned because you felt disheartened and decided to quit. The cumulative effect of these losses over a lifetime is catastrophic. I've consulted with leaders who have forfeited fortunes because they made choices in anger. I've witnessed founders dismantle years of partnership because they couldn't manage their reactions during a negotiation. I've watched talented people undermine their own careers by sending messages composed in frustration or delivering presentations clouded by anxiety. The relational cost is even more painful. Every time you lose emotional control with someone you care about, you withdraw from the relationship's emotional bank account. You create distance. You plant seeds of bitterness. Over years, these reactions accumulate and can destroy the bonds that matter most. Your children observe how you handle feelings and learn that this is normal. Your partner starts being cautious around you, uncertain what might set you off. Your colleagues begin to view you as volatile and unreliable. Your reputation becomes that of someone who cannot be depended on. When things get difficult, but perhaps the most devastating cost of emotional reactivity is what it does to your relationship with yourself. Every time you lose control, you lose a little self-respect. Deep down that you are capable of more. You could have managed the situation better. But in the moment, you felt powerless against your own internal storm. This creates a cycle of self-doubt and shame that eats away at your confidence from the inside. The good news? This is entirely within your power to change. Emotional reactivity is not your fate. It's not encoded in your DNA. It's not a fixed part of your identity. It is a habit. And like any habit, it can be broken and replaced with something far more powerful. The only question is whether you're willing to do the work to make that change. To understand how, we must first see why your brain seems wired to betray you. Your emotional responses aren't random. They are the product of millions of years of evolution, fine-tuned to keep your ancestors alive in an environment filled with tangible dangers. But the world has transformed and your brain hasn't received the update. Let me introduce you to a key part of your brain you likely don't think about. The amygdala. This small almond-shaped cluster sits deep within your brain and acts as your personal threat detection system. Its job is to scan for danger and trigger instant, life-preserving responses. When your predecessors encountered a predator, the amygdala would flood their bodies with adrenaline, shut down complex thought, and prepare them to fight or flee. This system saved lives. The problem is your amygdala cannot differentiate between a saber-toothed tiger and a harsh email from your superior. It doesn't distinguish a physical threat from a social one. It treats criticism, rejection, embarrassment, and disagreement as if they were life-or-death situations. So when your coworker challenges your proposal, your amygdala sounds the alarm exactly as if you were being charged by a wild animal. This is known as an amygdala hijack. And it happens to you far more often than you know. The instant your brain perceives a threat, rational thought goes offline. Blood flow is diverted away from your prefrontal cortex, the seat of logic, planning, and impulse control, and toward your limbic system, which governs emotional responses. You literally become less intelligent when you're emotionally triggered. What makes this worse is that your amygdala learns from experience, but it's terrible at learning the right lessons. Every time you have an emotional reaction, your amygdala files it away as proof that the situation was genuinely dangerous. This means things that triggered you once become more likely to trigger you again. Your brain is constantly expanding its list of perceived threats. This is why people who have been hurt in relationships become overly sensitive to any hint of rejection. Their amygdala has learned that emotional pain is dangerous, so it sounds alarms at the slightest possibility of recurrence. This is why people who have faced criticism become defensive about any feedback, even when it's constructive. Your amygdala also possesses a negativity bias. It's far better at remembering threats than rewards, failures than successes, pain than pleasure. This was logical when survival was the main objective. Forgetting a threat could be fatal, while forgetting a reward was merely unfortunate. But today, this bias means your brain is perpetually searching for problems, dangers, and reasons to be upset. Another critical factor is that your amygdala processes information much faster than your conscious mind. It can identify a threat and launch an emotional response in as little as 12 milliseconds. Your prefrontal cortex, the rational part, needs at least 500 milliseconds to process the same data. This means you're reacting emotionally long before you have a chance to think it through. This is why you sometimes find yourself feeling angry or anxious and then wondering why. Your emotional brain has already decided there's a threat and started preparing your body for action before your thinking brain knows what's occurring. By the time you're consciously aware of the anger, your heart is already pounding, your muscles are tight, and stress hormones are coursing through you. The modern world exacerbates this problem because we're continuously exposed to low-grade stressors that keep our amygdala on high alert. Social media alerts, news headlines engineered to provoke fear, work emails demanding instant replies, traffic, financial worries, interpersonal tensions. Your brain is assaulted with signals that something might be wrong, keeping your threat system in a near-constant state of activation. This persistent state of alert has serious consequences for your ability to think clearly. When your amygdala is constantly activated, it becomes hypersensitive. Situations that wouldn't normally bother you start to feel overwhelming. Your threshold for emotional reactions drops lower and lower until even minor irritations can provoke major responses. Sleep deprivation makes this dramatically worse. When you're tired, your amygdala becomes significantly more reactive to negative stimuli. This means you're literally more prone to lose emotional control when you haven't slept well. Stress, poor diet, lack of movement, and dehydration all similarly impair your brain's ability to regulate emotions. But here is the insight that changes everything. Understanding that your emotional reactions are automatic doesn't mean you're helpless against them. It means you can learn to collaborate with your brain instead of fighting it. You can train your prefrontal cortex to override your amygdala. You can build new neural pathways that support emotional command instead of emotional reactivity. The key is recognizing that there is always a gap between the trigger and your response. It might be microseconds, but it exists, and in that gap lies your ultimate power. That's where you can choose to respond instead of react. That's where you can take back control of your destiny. Not all emotional control is the same. Most people view managing emotions as a binary switch. You're either in control or you're not. This black and white thinking is precisely why many never develop genuine emotional mastery. True emotional command exists on 4 distinct tiers. Understanding these levels is essential for cultivating the kind of unwavering inner strength that distinguishes top performers from the rest. Level 1 is unconscious reactivity. This is where the majority of people live their entire lives. At this stage, you are completely at the mercy of your emotions. You feel something and you immediately act on it without any conscious choice. Someone says something that irritates you and you snap back instantly. You feel nervous about a situation and you avoid it without a second thought. You get thrilled about a possibility and you make rash decisions you later rue. People at level 1 don't even realize they have a choice in how they respond. They believe their feelings are facts, their emotional reactions are warranted, and that others are responsible for how they feel. They use phrases like, "You made me angry," or "I can't help how I feel." They have zero awareness of the gap between stimulus and response. The issue with level 1 is that it renders you completely unpredictable. People never know which version of you they'll encounter. You might be calm and reasonable one moment and explosive the next, depending on your mood, stress level, and circumstances. This unpredictability destroys trust in relationships and makes it impossible for others to rely on you when things get tough. Level 2 is conscious reactivity. This is where you become aware that you're having an emotional reaction, but you choose to act on it anyway. You know you're angry. You know you're about to say something regrettable, but you do it anyway because it feels justified in the moment. You recognize that you're being controlled by your emotions, but you tell yourself that this instance is different, that this time your reaction is deserved. People at level 2 often rationalize their emotional reactions by focusing on others' behavior. They say things like, "Yes, I lost my temper, but you should have seen what they did," or, "I know I shouldn't have sent that message, but they deserved it." They possess awareness, but no real control. They see the gap between stimulus and response, but elect not to use it. Level 2 is often more frustrating than level 1 because you know better, but you still can't seem to stop yourself. You become trapped in a cycle of emotional reactions, followed by guilt and regret, followed by promises to improve, followed by more reactions. This creates a pattern of self-disappointment that erodes your confidence and self-respect over time. Level 3 is conscious response. This is where authentic emotional mastery begins. At this stage, you feel the emotion. You recognize it for what it is, and you consciously choose how to respond based on your principles and long-term objectives rather than your immediate feelings. You might feel furious, but you choose to speak calmly. You might feel terrified, but you choose to take action regardless. You might feel let down, but you choose to focus on solutions instead of dwelling on the problem. People at level 3 understand that emotions are data, not directives. They recognize that feeling angry doesn't mean they must act angrily. They know that feeling anxious doesn't mean they're in actual peril. They have learned to create space between what they feel and how they respond. And they use that space to make choices that align with the person they aspire to be, not how they temporarily feel. This level demands significant practice and self-awareness. You must become skilled at identifying your emotional states as they emerge, comprehending what activates them, and having a toolkit of alternative responses ready to deploy. You must train yourself to pause, breathe, and think before you act. This doesn't happen instantly, but it is absolutely attainable with consistent effort. Level 4 is emotional alchemy. This is the pinnacle of emotional mastery, where you not only control your response to emotions, but actually transmute the emotions themselves. Instead of merely managing anger, you transform it into determined motivation. Instead of just coping with fear, you transform it into focused excitement. Instead of simply dealing with disappointment, you transform it into curious learning. People at level 4 have cultivated such a profound understanding of their emotional patterns that they can often prevent negative emotions from arising initially. They have restructured their thought patterns, beliefs, and mental models in ways that naturally generate more positive and useful emotional states. When negative emotions do surface, they possess the skills to rapidly convert them into something constructive. This level is not about positive thinking or pretending difficult emotions don't exist. It's about developing such command over your internal world that you can consciously influence what you feel in any given scenario. You become the author of your own emotional experience rather than an actor performing from a script you didn't write. The journey from level 1 to level 4 isn't linear. You might be at level 3 in some life domains and level 1 in others. You might handle professional pressure masterfully but completely lose control in family dynamics. The objective is not perfection but progression. Each level represents a substantial upgrade in your capacity to create the life you want. Rather than just reacting to the life that happens to you, most people never progress beyond level 2 because they don't grasp that emotional mastery is a developable skill. They think some people are naturally good at controlling their emotions while others aren't. This is completely false. Emotional control is like physical strength. Some might have better genetics, but anyone can get stronger with dedicated training. The question you must ask is, what level am I operating from right now? And more importantly, what level do I want to operate from? Because once you decide to upgrade your emotional operating system, every aspect of your life will begin to transform. Now, let's get into the practical system you can use the next time you feel that emotional surge. When you're in the grip of an emotional reaction, when your heart is hammering, your mind is racing, and every instinct screams to retaliate or retreat, you need a reliable method. You need a technique you can deploy immediately in real time to regain command before you cause lasting harm to your relationships, your reputation, or your ambitions. Most advice about emotional control is useless in these moments because it requires you to think clearly when clear thinking is precisely what you cannot do. When you're emotionally hijacked, your prefrontal cortex is offline. You can't access complex strategies or recall detailed frameworks. You need something simple, something automatic, something that works even when your rational mind has temporarily checked out. This is where the pause protocol comes in. 4 letters that represent 4 actions you take in sequence to interrupt an emotional reaction and reclaim control of yourself before you make decisions you'll regret. This method is grounded in neuroscience and has been validated in the most extreme pressure environments. From emergency rooms to combat zones to corporate boardrooms, P stands for pause. The moment you notice you're having an emotional reaction, you must physically stop whatever you're doing. If you're typing a furious email, lift your hands from the keyboard. If you're in a heated discussion, stop talking. If you're about to make an impulsive choice, step away from the situation. This physical stopping action sends a powerful signal to your brain that you're taking charge. The key to making this work is developing the ability to detect the early warning signs of emotional activation. Your body always provides clues before your emotions completely take over. Your heart beats faster. Your muscles tense. Your breathing becomes shallow. You feel warmth in your face or tension in your stomach. These physical sensations are your cue to stop everything and initiate the protocol. Most people miss these early signals because they're not paying attention to their bodies. They're lost in their thoughts, focused on the external event, completely unaware of their internal state until they're already in full reaction mode. Learning to tune into your bodily sensations is like installing an early detection system that gives you time to implement control strategies before it's too late. The pause action must be decisive and total. You can't partially pause. You have to fully disengage. This might feel awkward initially, especially mid-conversation. But the temporary awkwardness of pausing is nothing compared to the lasting damage of saying or doing something you'll regret. A stands for anchor your breath, not just any breath, but a specific breathing pattern that activates your parasympathetic nervous system and begins to calm your emotional storm. Breathe in slowly through your nose for a count of 4. Hold your breath for a count of 4. Then breathe out slowly through your mouth for a count of 6. This is called box breathing, and it's used by special operations forces, first responders, and elite performers to maintain composure under extreme duress. The reason this breathing pattern works is that it stimulates your vagus nerve, which acts like a reset button for your nervous system. When you're emotionally activated, your sympathetic nervous system is in control, flooding your body with stress hormones and preparing you for fight or flight. The extended exhale activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for rest and recovery. This begins to counter the stress response and helps restore rational thought. You need to repeat this breathing pattern at least 3 times, but continue for as long as necessary to feel your heart rate beginning to slow. Don't rush this step. The goal isn't just to calm down enough to function, but to calm down enough to think clearly and make wise decisions. This might take 30 seconds or it might take 5 minutes. Give yourself whatever time you need. U stands for unpack. Now that you've paused the action and begun to regulate your nervous system, you need to objectively unpack what's actually happening, both internally and externally. What emotion are you truly feeling? What thoughts are circulating in your mind? What physical sensations are present? What is factually occurring in the external situation as opposed to what you're interpreting or assuming is happening? This unpacking step is vital because emotional reactions are frequently based on interpretations rather than facts. Someone doesn't reply to your text, and you interpret that as rejection when they might simply be busy. A colleague questions your idea, and you interpret it as a personal attack when they might be trying to improve the project. Your partner seems distant, and you interpret that as evidence they don't care anymore when they might be stressed about work. During the unpack step, separate facts from interpretations. What did the person actually say or do? What evidence supports the story you're telling yourself about their motives? What other plausible explanations exist for their behavior? This process of objective unpacking helps you see the situation more clearly and often reveals that your emotional reaction was based on assumptions, not reality. You also want to observe your own internal state with curiosity, not judgment. Don't berate yourself for having an emotional reaction. Don't tell yourself you shouldn't feel this way. Just notice what's happening with the detached interest of a scientist observing an experiment. This emotion is present. This thought pattern is active. This physical sensation is occurring. Information, not condemnation, S stands for select, now that you've paused the reactive behavior, anchored your nervous system, and objectively unpacked the situation. You can select a conscious response instead of an unconscious reaction. But this doesn't mean leaping back into action. The select step involves making a deliberate choice about how you want to respond based on your values, your goals, and your long-term interests, not your immediate emotional impulses. Ask yourself, what response would be most aligned with the person I want to become and the outcome I want to create? If your goal is to preserve a good relationship, what response would serve that goal? If your goal is to solve a problem, what response would be most effective? If your goal is to maintain your integrity, what response would support that goal? Sometimes the best choice in the select step is to not respond at all, at least not immediately. You might decide you need more information before you can respond effectively. You might realize you're still too emotionally charged to respond in a way that aligns with your values. You might determine the situation doesn't actually require a response from you. Other times, the select step might involve having a conversation, but approaching it differently than you would have if you had reacted instantly. Instead of defending your position, you might ask questions to better understand the other perspective. Instead of making accusations, you might share how you interpreted their words and seek clarification. Your response is a choice, not a reflex. The pause protocol becomes more potent the more you practice it. Initially, you might only remember to use it after you've already reacted. That's normal and still valuable because it builds awareness of your patterns. Gradually, you'll start catching yourself earlier in the process. Maybe after you've begun to react, but before you've caused serious harm. Eventually, you'll be able to implement the protocol as soon as you notice the early warning signs of emotional activation. The goal isn't to never have emotional reactions. The goal is to never let those reactions dictate your behavior in ways that work against your best interests. The pause protocol gives you the tools to create space between trigger and response. And in that space lies your power to craft the life you desire, rather than just reacting to the life that occurs. But this is just the beginning. To create lasting change, we need to build deep emotional resilience. Controlling your emotions in the moment is critical, but it's only half the battle. The other half is constructing profound, unshakable emotional resilience that makes you antifragile, not just strong enough to withstand emotional challenges, but actually stronger because of them. This separates people who occasionally manage their emotions from those who have fundamentally transformed their relationship with difficulty, stress, and adversity. Most people approach emotional resilience backwards. They wait until they're in a crisis to try to develop coping skills. They wait until they're overwhelmed to attempt building stress management techniques. They wait until they're burned out to create better boundaries. This is like waiting until you're drowning to learn how to swim. By the time you need the skills, it's too late to develop them effectively. Authentic emotional resilience is built during calm periods, not during storms. It's developed through consistent daily practices that strengthen your emotional immune system so that when challenges arise, you're already prepared to handle them with grace and effectiveness. Just like physical fitness, emotional fitness requires regular training, not just emergency intervention. The foundation of emotional resilience is what I call baseline optimization. This is the daily maintenance of your mental, emotional, and physical state that keeps you operating at peak capacity. When your baseline is strong, you can handle significantly more stress before reaching your breaking point. When your baseline is weak, even minor difficulties can overwhelm your system. Sleep is the non-negotiable foundation of baseline optimization. When you're sleep-deprived, your amygdala becomes hyperactive while your prefrontal cortex becomes sluggish. This means you're more likely to have emotional reactions and less able to control them. The research is clear. People who sleep less than 7 hours per night have dramatically reduced emotional regulation capacity. It's not just about quantity, but quality. Your bedroom should be dark, cool, and quiet. Avoid screens for at least an hour before bed. Limit caffeine after midday. Maintain a consistent sleep schedule. These aren't suggestions. They're requirements if you want to maintain emotional command under pressure. Nutrition plays a massive role in emotional stability that most people ignore. Your brain runs on glucose. When your blood sugar is unstable, so are your emotions. Skipping meals, eating processed foods, excessive caffeine, and alcohol all create biochemical conditions that make emotional regulation much harder. The solution is straightforward but requires discipline. Include protein with every meal to stabilize blood sugar. Consume omega-3 fatty acids for brain health. Stay hydrated. Avoid foods that cause inflammation like most processed items and excess sugar. Your emotional state is directly connected to your nutritional state. Whether you realize it or not, physical exercise is not optional for emotional resilience. When you exercise regularly, you increase production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, which literally grows new brain cells and strengthens neural connections. You also boost neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine that regulate mood and motivation. Perhaps most importantly, exercise provides controlled stress that builds your capacity to handle uncontrolled stress. The type of exercise matters. You need both cardiovascular exercise to build stress tolerance and strength, training to build physical confidence and mental fortitude. You also benefit from movement that challenges coordination and focus, like martial arts or dance. Building the mind-body connection, essential for emotional regulation. The second pillar of emotional resilience is cognitive flexibility. This is your ability to see situations from multiple angles, generate creative solutions, and adapt your thinking when circumstances change. People with low cognitive flexibility get stuck in rigid thought patterns that amplify emotional reactions. People with high cognitive flexibility can find opportunity in adversity and maintain emotional balance even when plans fall apart. One powerful way to build cognitive flexibility is through regular exposure to different perspectives. Read authors who disagree with your worldview. Have conversations with people from different backgrounds. Travel to places that challenge your assumptions. The goal isn't to abandon your values, but to expand your mental models and increase your ability to see situations from multiple viewpoints. Another crucial component is developing comfort with uncertainty. Most emotional reactions are triggered by situations that feel uncertain or out of control. If you can learn to be comfortable with not knowing exactly how things will turn out, you'll be much less likely to have emotional reactions when life deviates from the plan. Practice making decisions with incomplete information. Set goals without knowing every step. Engage in activities with uncertain outcomes. The more comfortable you become with uncertainty, the more emotionally stable you'll be when facing unknown challenges. The third pillar is meaning-making. People who have a clear sense of purpose and meaning are far more resilient in adversity. When you know why you're doing something, when you can connect current struggles to a larger purpose, it becomes much easier to maintain emotional control when things get difficult. This doesn't require a grand mission to save the world. It can be as simple as being a good parent, building a meaningful business, or contributing positively to your community. The key is that your goals and activities connect to something larger than immediate comfort or pleasure. Regularly reflecting on your values and priorities helps maintain this sense of meaning. What do you stand for? What kind of person do you want to be? What impact do you want to have? When you're clear on these questions, it becomes far easier to choose long-term thinking over short-term emotional reactions. The fourth pillar is social connection. Humans are social creatures, and isolation makes emotional regulation much harder. Having strong, supportive relationships provides both emotional resources during difficult times and accountability that helps you maintain high standards for your behavior. But not all relationships contribute to emotional resilience. Relationships with people who are constantly dramatic, negative, or emotionally volatile will drain your emotional energy and make it harder to maintain control. You need relationships with people who model emotional maturity and bring out your best, not trigger your worst. This means being intentional about who you spend time with. Minimize contact with people who consistently create chaos. Invest more time in relationships with people who are growing, learning, and working to become better versions of themselves. Your emotional state is heavily influenced by the emotional states of those around you. The fifth pillar is strategic stress exposure. Just as muscles need progressive overload to grow stronger, your emotional regulation system needs controlled challenges to develop greater capacity. If you only practice emotional control during easy times, you won't have the strength to maintain it during difficult times. This means intentionally placing yourself in situations slightly outside your comfort zone regularly. Take on challenging but achievable projects. Have difficult conversations you've been avoiding. Set goals that require you to grow beyond your current capabilities. The key is to choose your challenges rather than letting life choose them for you. Cold exposure, public speaking, martial arts, endurance sports, and meditation retreats are all excellent forms of strategic stress exposure. They put you in controlled situations where you must manage discomfort and uncertainty while maintaining composure. The final pillar is recovery and restoration. Your emotional regulation system, like any high-performance system, needs regular maintenance and recovery. If you're constantly pushing without taking time to restore your energy, you'll eventually burn out and lose the ability to maintain emotional control. This means building regular recovery practices into your daily and weekly routine. Daily meditation or mindfulness. Weekly time in nature without technology. Monthly periods of complete disconnection from work and social demands. Annual retreats or vacations for deep rest and reflection. Recovery is not a luxury or a reward for hard work. It's a requirement for sustained high performance. Without adequate recovery, your emotional regulation capacity will gradually decline, and you'll find yourself becoming more reactive, irritable, and less able to handle normal life challenges. Building emotional resilience is a long-term project requiring patience and consistency. You can't develop it overnight, but you also can't afford to wait until you need it to start building it. The time to strengthen your emotional foundation is now, while you're relatively calm and stable. Because when life's storms arrive, and they will, you want to be the person who remains unshakable while others are falling apart. This understanding becomes infinitely more powerful when you see the neuroscience behind it. Everything I've shared becomes more compelling when you understand what's actually happening in your brain during emotional control practice. This isn't just psychology. It's hard science. Measurable, repeatable changes in brain structure and function occur when you consistently practice emotional mastery techniques. Understanding the neuroscience serves two vital purposes. First, it gives you confidence that your work is creating real, lasting change, not just temporary improvements. Second, it helps you optimize your practice by understanding which specific actions create the most significant neurological shifts. Let's start with neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout your life. For most of history, scientists believed adult brains were fixed. If you had certain emotional patterns, you were stuck. We now know this is false. Your brain constantly rewires itself based on your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Every time you choose a thoughtful response over an emotional reaction, you strengthen the neural pathways for self-control and weaken those for reactivity. Every time you practice the pause protocol, You're literally building new brain circuitry that makes emotional command easier and more automatic. The key insight is that your brain doesn't distinguish well between what you're thinking about and what you're actually experiencing. When you mentally rehearse staying calm under pressure, your brain creates similar neural connections as if you had actually stayed calm. This means you can accelerate your emotional development by regularly visualizing yourself handling challenging situations with grace and composure. The most dramatic neuroplastic changes occur in the prefrontal cortex, your brain's command center. This region handles planning, decision-making, impulse control, and emotional regulation. People who regularly practice emotional control show increased gray matter density here, meaning they literally have more brain tissue dedicated to rational thinking and self-command. Meanwhile, the amygdala, your alarm system, actually shrinks in people who practice emotional regulation. This doesn't mean you become emotionless. It means your threat detection becomes more accurate and less prone to false alarms. You develop the ability to distinguish real threats requiring immediate action from perceived threats that can be handled thoughtfully. The anterior cingulate cortex is another crucial region that changes with emotional training. This area manages attention regulation and conflict monitoring. It helps you notice when you're having an emotional reaction and redirects your attention toward more constructive responses. People with stronger anterior cingulate cortexes are better at catching themselves before emotional reactions spiral. The insula, which processes bodily sensations and links them to emotional experiences, also becomes more developed in people who practice emotional awareness. This enhanced body awareness allows you to detect early warning signs of emotional activation before they become full-blown reactions. You become more sensitive to changes in heart rate, muscle tension, breathing, and other physical indicators of emotional state. One fascinating discovery is that emotional regulation practice changes your brain's default mode network. This is the network active when you're not focused on a task, often called the monkey mind. In people who don't practice emotional control, the default mode network tends to generate repetitive, often negative thought patterns. Worry, rumination, self-criticism, and anxiety become the brain's baseline. But in people who regularly practice emotional regulation, the default mode network becomes quieter and more peaceful. Their baseline state becomes calm and centered rather than agitated and reactive. Your neurotransmitter systems also undergo significant changes with emotional training. Serotonin, regulating mood and social behavior, increases. Dopamine, governing motivation and reward, becomes more stable. GABA, your brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter, increases, helping reduce anxiety and promote calm. Perhaps most importantly, the stress hormone cortisol becomes much better regulated. Chronic elevated cortisol destroys brain cells, impairs memory, weakens immunity, and creates health problems. People who master their emotional responses show lower baseline cortisol and faster recovery after stressful events. Mirror neurons add another dimension. These brain cells fire both when you perform an action and when you observe someone else doing it. This means spending time with people who have good emotional control literally trains your brain for better control. Conversely, time with emotionally reactive people trains your brain for more reactivity. This is why your social environment profoundly impacts your emotional development. You're not just influenced by others' behavior. Your brain mimics their neural patterns. Choose your social environment carefully. It's shaping your brain whether you realize it or not. Research on meditation provides clear evidence of how emotional practices change brain structure. Studies show just 8 weeks of regular meditation creates measurable brain changes. The hippocampus, learning and memory, grows. The amygdala decreases in reactivity. The prefrontal cortex becomes more active and better connected. You don't need to be a meditation master to benefit. Any consistent practice involving observing thoughts and emotions without immediately reacting creates similar changes. The key factors are consistency, attention, and non-reactive awareness. Breathing exercises create rapid neurological changes because the vagus nerve, connecting your brain to your body's relaxation response, can be directly influenced through conscious breathing. The box breathing technique activates your parasympathetic nervous system within seconds. Progressive muscle relaxation works by strengthening connections between your prefrontal cortex and motor cortex. When you consciously tense and release muscles, you practice voluntary control over your body's stress system, building neural pathways for conscious relaxation. Cognitive reframing strengthens connections between your prefrontal cortex and limbic system. Every time you choose a different interpretation, you build neural highways, making optimistic, solution-focused thinking more automatic. Understanding these mechanisms helps you stay motivated during difficult phases. When progress feels slow, remember your brain is rewiring itself at the cellular level. Changes feeling invisible are creating measurable neural transformations. The timeline varies, but most notice differences in emotional reactivity within 2 to 4 weeks. Significant structural changes typically occur within 8 to 12 weeks. Complete transformation of emotional patterns usually takes 6 months to 2 years of consistent practice. This is encouraging and sobering. Encouraging because lasting change is possible and science-backed. Sobering because there are no quick fixes. Emotional mastery requires patient, consistent training like physical fitness or musical skill. But once established, these neural changes tend to be permanent. Unlike temporary behavior modifications requiring constant effort, neuroplastic changes create new baseline patterns, becoming your brain's default mode. The person struggling to control emotions becomes the person who naturally responds with wisdom. The neuroscience proves you are not stuck with emotional patterns from childhood or reactive tendencies from adulthood. Your brain is plastic, adaptable, constantly changing based on use. Every moment of emotional control practice is an investment in rewiring your neural circuitry for greater peace, effectiveness, and life satisfaction. Now, let's apply this to the ultimate test: high-pressure situations. Everything you've learned gets tested when stakes are high and pressure is intense. It's one thing to practice emotional control during meditation or minor disagreements. It's entirely different facing a crisis that could end your career, relationship, or threaten everything you've built. High-pressure situations reveal who you are beneath surface politeness. They strip away pretense and expose your true emotional mastery level. Most perform worse under pressure because they let the situation's intensity overwhelm rational thought. But elite performers get better under pressure because they've trained specifically for these moments. The difference isn't talent, intelligence, or luck. It's preparation, specifically emotional preparation. When you've trained your nervous system to remain calm and your mind to think clearly during intensity, pressure becomes an advantage. The first key is understanding pressure is internal, not external. The situation is neutral. It becomes pressurized when your mind interprets it as threatening. Two people can face identical circumstances with completely different stress responses based on how they frame it. Controlling pressure starts with controlling your narrative. Instead of telling yourself, "This is terrible, I can't handle this," reframe it, "This is challenging, but I have the skills to handle it. This is an opportunity to prove my capabilities. This is exactly what I've trained for." Elite athletes, emergency responders, and special forces use this reframing. They don't pretend situations aren't dangerous or difficult. They acknowledge reality while choosing interpretations enhancing rather than diminishing performance. The second key is physiological preparation. Your stress response system needs training to handle intense activation without overwhelm. This is stress inoculation. Like vaccines expose your immune system to small pathogen amounts to build resistance, stress inoculation exposes your nervous system to controlled stress to build resilience. Cold exposure is highly effective. When you deliberately expose yourself to cold, you activate the same stress systems triggered during high-pressure situations. But because you're choosing it, you can practice maintaining calm and clear thinking while physiologically stressed. The key isn't just enduring cold, but practicing emotional control techniques during it. Breathe slowly. Relax muscles. Maintain positive self-talk. Stay present-focused. These are the same skills needed during high pressure. High-intensity exercise serves similarly. Pushing physical limits trains mental discipline while under extreme stress. The discomfort during intense exercise resembles discomfort during high pressure. Staying mentally tough during physical challenges translates directly to emotional challenges. The third key is attention management. Under pressure, your mind scatters. You think about what could go wrong, who's watching, consequences of failure. This divided attention makes peak performance impossible because it requires complete focus on the task. The solution is laser focus, concentrating all mental energy on specific actions needed right now. Everything else becomes irrelevant background noise, acknowledged but not engaged. Develop laser focus during low-pressure situations. Set a timer for 10 minutes, choose a single task, focus completely. When your mind wanders, gently return attention. Start with simple tasks, gradually increase complexity and distractions. During high pressure, use the same technique. Identify the most important immediate action, focus completely on it. Don't think 10 steps ahead. Don't think about people depending on you. Focus on the immediate task. The fourth key is emotional granularity. Most experience pressure as generic stress or anxiety. But these are umbrella terms covering many specific emotions. The more precisely you identify what you're actually feeling, the more effectively you can address it. Are you anxious about outcome or excited about challenge? Overwhelmed by complexity or focused by clarity? Afraid of failure or motivated to succeed? Physiological sensations might be similar, but meanings and appropriate responses differ. Practice emotional labeling during calm periods to access this skill during intensity. Keep an emotion journal identifying specific emotions experienced daily. Learn differences between frustration and disappointment, anxiety and excitement, anger and hurt. The more nuanced your emotional vocabulary, the more precisely you can regulate your state. The fifth key is process focus versus outcome focus. Under pressure, most obsess over results. They think constantly about succeeding or failing, what others think, consequences. This outcome focus creates additional pressure and divides attention from actions determining outcome. Elite performers focus on process. They concentrate on executing trained skills and strategies, trusting good processes lead to good outcomes. A surgeon focuses on precise incisions, not patient survival. A pilot focuses on proper procedures, not plane crashes. A negotiator focuses on asking good questions and listening, not getting the deal. Process focus is liberating because it puts you in control of what you can actually control. You can't directly control outcomes, always partly dependent on external factors, but you can control effort, attention, technique, attitude. Focusing on controllable factors decreases pressure and improves performance. The sixth key is contingency planning. High-pressure situations often involve unexpected developments we haven't prepared for. Not knowing how to respond if things go wrong makes uncertainty itself a pressure source. Elite performers reduce uncertainty by thinking through multiple scenarios in advance, developing specific plans for each possibility. They ask, what will I do if this happens? If that happens? How will I respond if everything goes wrong? This mental rehearsal builds confidence and reduces cognitive load during actual high pressure. But contingency planning must balance with present moment focus. Have plans ready for different scenarios, but once in the situation, focus on executing the current plan rather than constantly second-guessing. Plan before pressure, not during. The final key is recovery and reflection. High-pressure situations take a toll on mental and emotional resources. Even when handled well, without deliberate recovery and processing, you gradually become more vulnerable to pressure, not more resilient. After any high-pressure situation, take time to decompress. Use breathing, movement, or relaxation to help your nervous system return to baseline. Avoid major decisions or additional stressful activities until recovered. Then reflect on the experience with curiosity, not judgment. What worked well? What could improve? What did you learn about yourself and capabilities? How can you apply these lessons to future high pressure? This reflection consolidates learning and builds confidence for handling similar situations. Remember, pressure is a privilege. It means you're in situations that matter, facing challenges worthy of your best effort. Most avoid pressure and never discover their true capabilities. When you learn to thrive under pressure, you gain access to opportunities and achievements impossible for those who crumble when stakes are high. Now, let's transform how you view negative emotions themselves. Most treat negative emotions like toxic waste to dispose of quickly. They try to suppress anger, avoid sadness, eliminate fear, escape frustration. This approach is ineffective and counterproductive. Negative emotions contain enormous energy and information that, properly harnessed, become rocket fuel for ambitious goals. The problem isn't experiencing negative emotions. It's not knowing how to transform them into something useful. You let them drain energy instead of directing it productively. You let them cloud judgment instead of using them to clarify priorities. You let them paralyze instead of motivating breakthrough performance. Every negative emotion is your psyche communicating important information about your situation, values, and goals. Anger signals something important is threatened or violated. Fear signals you're facing uncertainty or potential loss. Sadness signals you've lost something valuable. Frustration signals you're blocked from something you want. Instead of making these emotions go away, learn to decode their messages and channel their energy productively. This is the difference between emotional suppression, weakening you, and emotional alchemy, strengthening you. Let's start with anger, perhaps the most misunderstood emotion. Most either explode with anger, destroying relationships and creating regret, or suppress it, letting it build until it explodes anyway or turns into resentment. Both waste anger's enormous energy. Anger is your psyche's emergency response to perceived injustice or threat. It floods you with energy and focus to fight back against what's attacking you or your values. This energy can be destructive when directed at others through blame or aggression, but it can be incredibly productive when directed toward solving problems, overcoming obstacles, creating positive change. The key to transforming anger is separating the energy from the target. Instead of directing anger at the person or situation triggering it, redirect that energy toward constructive action. Use the focus and determination anger provides to work harder on goals, solve problems more aggressively, push through obstacles normally stopping you. Some greatest achievements were fueled by transformed anger. Entrepreneurs building billion-dollar companies angry about unsolved problems. Athletes dominating sports angry about being underestimated. Activists changing the world angry about injustice. The emotion destroying most people became the driving force for extraordinary success. Fear is another emotion most handle wrong. They try to eliminate it or let it paralyze them. But fear contains crucial information about what matters. You only feel afraid about losing valuable things or failing at important things. Fear is your internal guidance system pointing toward what you need to protect or pursue. The goal isn't eliminating fear, but dancing with it. Acknowledge fear. Extract its information. Then take action despite fear. This is courage, not absence of fear, but intelligent action in its presence. Every courageous action builds confidence and reduces fear's grip. Fear also serves as an excellent filter for opportunities and goals. If something doesn't scare you a little, it's probably not challenging enough to be worth pursuing. Goals frightening you usually have highest growth and achievement potential. Instead of avoiding these goals, let fear guide you toward them. Sadness and disappointment are emotions most avoid, but they contain valuable information. Sadness tells you what you truly value by showing what hurts to lose. Disappointment tells you what you genuinely want by showing what hurts not to achieve. Most experience them as pure loss, but they're clarifying experiences. They help distinguish what you think you want from what you actually want, others' expectations from authentic values. This clarity is invaluable for better decisions on time, energy, and resource investment. Sadness also creates empathy and connection with others experiencing similar losses. Many meaningful relationships and impactful contributions are born from shared sadness and recovery. Instead of viewing sadness as weakness, recognize it as a sign of your capacity to love deeply and care authentically. Frustration is perhaps the most commonly experienced negative emotion and most wasted. Frustration arises from a gap between where you are and want to be, what's happening, and what you want happening. Most let frustration drain energy through complaining, blaming, or giving up. But frustration signals you care deeply about improvement and progress. Its energy can transform into determination and persistence. Instead of being frustrated by obstacles, become fascinated by them. Instead of frustrated by setbacks, become more committed to solutions. Instead of frustrated by others' limitations, become more focused on developing your capabilities. Frustration is also an excellent diagnostic tool for identifying areas needing new skills or strategies. If you keep getting frustrated by similar situations, it's usually because you're solving new problems with old approaches. Frustration tells you it's time to upgrade capabilities. Anxiety and worry are forward-looking emotions most experience as torture. But anxiety contains important planning information about potential challenges needing preparation. Instead of eliminating anxiety, use it as a strategic planning tool. What specifically are you worried about? What would you need to do to address those concerns? How can you prepare for anticipated challenges? The key is transforming vague anxiety into specific action plans. Most anxiety is caused by unclear threats and uncertain timelines. When you get specific about what you're worried about and what you can do, anxiety often transforms into useful preparation. Worry becomes productive when it leads to preparation, counterproductive when it leads to rumination. The difference is action. Productive worry asks, "What can I do to prepare?" Counterproductive worry asks, "What if this happens?" Repeatedly, without generating useful responses, guilt and shame are perhaps the most painful emotions, but they contain important information about values and integrity. Guilt tells you when actions don't align with values. Shame tells you when behavior doesn't align with identity. Both are painful precisely because they indicate misalignment between who you are and want to be. Instead of escaping guilt and shame, use them as course correction signals. What do these emotions tell you about what you value? What changes do you need for better alignment with values? How can you use this information to become more consistent with your highest self? The key to transforming any negative emotion is approaching it with curiosity, not resistance. Instead of asking how to make the feeling go away, ask what it's trying to tell you. How can I use this energy productively? What action can I take honoring the message while moving toward goals? This transformation requires practice and patience. Your habitual response to negative emotions has been reinforced over years. It won't change overnight. But every time you choose to transform rather than suppress or indulge a negative emotion, you build neural pathways, making this process more automatic. The goal isn't becoming someone who never experiences negative emotions. The goal is becoming someone who can quickly transform those emotions into fuel for positive action. When you master this, setbacks become setups, obstacles become opportunities, and experiences breaking most people become experiences making you stronger. This entire journey builds toward one ultimate outcome: unshakable confidence. Confidence isn't what most think. It's not absence of doubt or fear. It's not believing you'll never fail. It's not feeling better than others or that success is guaranteed. Real confidence is deeper and more powerful. True confidence is the unshakable knowledge you can handle whatever life throws at you. It's the quiet certainty you have the emotional tools, mental frameworks, and inner resources to navigate any challenge, setback, or uncertainty. It's not about never falling down. It's about knowing you can always get back up. This confidence can only be built through one process: repeatedly facing difficult situations and proving to yourself you can handle them with grace and effectiveness. You cannot think, affirm, or fake your way to confidence. You can only build it through evidence. And evidence comes from action, but most get this wrong. They think they need to feel confident before taking action. They think confidence is a prerequisite for facing challenges rather than a result. This backwards thinking traps them in self-doubt, because they're waiting for a feeling that can only come from doing the very things they're afraid to do. The confidence-building process works in reverse. You take action despite feeling uncertain or afraid. You handle the situation better than expected. You extract lessons and grow stronger. Your brain updates its capability assessment. Your confidence increases, then you're ready for slightly bigger challenges, and the cycle continues. This is why emotional mastery is the foundation of unshakable confidence. When you know you can control reactions regardless of what happens, stay calm under pressure, think clearly when emotions run high, you develop an inner certainty, making you nearly impossible to shake. Most confidence is built on external factors they can't control. They feel confident when things go well, others approve, they're successful by conventional standards. This confidence is fragile because it depends on circumstances that can change anytime. Real confidence is built on internal factors you can control. The first pillar is emotional self-reliance. This is knowing your emotional state isn't dependent on others' behavior, external circumstances, or unpredictable events. You know you can generate needed emotional states through your own thoughts, actions, and practices. You don't need others to make you feel good about yourself, and you don't let others' negativity drag you down. Emotional self-reliance is built through consistent practice of emotional regulation techniques. Every time you successfully manage your emotional state during a challenge, you prove you have this capability. Every time you choose your response instead of reacting automatically, you build evidence you're in control of your inner experience. This doesn't mean becoming emotionally disconnected or not caring about relationships. It means engaging from strength, not neediness. You contribute to relationships rather than draining them. You can be genuinely supportive because you're not constantly seeking support. The second pillar is competence building. Confidence without competence is delusion. You need to actually be good at things that matter. You need real skills, knowledge, and abilities creating genuine value. But competence building isn't just technical skills. It's developing meta skills making you effective in any domain. Problem solving is perhaps the most important meta skill for confidence. When you know you can figure things out, when you have a systematic approach to breaking down complex challenges and finding solutions, you become much more willing to take on difficult situations. You're not intimidated by unfamiliar problems because you trust your ability to learn and adapt. Communication is another crucial meta skill. When you can express ideas clearly, listen effectively, navigate difficult conversations with skill, you become much more confident socially and professionally. You're not afraid of conflict because you know how to handle it constructively. You're not intimidated by authority because you know how to communicate with respect while maintaining dignity. Learning agility is the meta skill making all other skills possible. This is your ability to quickly acquire new knowledge and capabilities as situations require. When you know you can learn anything you need, you're not limited by current knowledge. You become confident taking on challenges requiring skills you don't yet have because you trust your ability to develop them. The third pillar is integrity alignment. This is consistency between your values, words, and actions. When these three align, you develop inner strength, making you nearly impossible to shake because you know you're living authentically. When misaligned, you feel weak and uncertain because you're not sure who you really are or what you stand for. Most compromise integrity gradually through small decisions seeming insignificant. They tell little lies to avoid discomfort. They make commitments they don't intend to keep. They act in ways contradicting stated values. Each compromise weakens their inner foundation and erodes confidence. Building integrity alignment requires ruthless honesty about what you actually value versus what you think you should. It requires making your word mean something by only making commitments you intend to keep. It requires courage to act according to values even when difficult or costly. When integrity is intact, you develop unshakable presence. People sense you're authentic, not trying to be someone you're not, comfortable with who you are. This presence is magnetic, creating opportunities not available to those constantly trying to impress or fit in. The fourth pillar is resilience building. This is your track record of recovering from setbacks, learning from failures, coming back stronger from difficult experiences. Every time you face adversity and emerge better, you build evidence. Challenges don't break you. They make you stronger. Most try to avoid adversity. This actually weakens confidence because they never prove to themselves they can handle difficulty. They remain fragile and fearful with no evidence of their own resilience. Building unshakable confidence requires deliberately seeking challenges, testing your limits, and forcing growth. This doesn't mean being reckless or seeking unnecessary suffering. It means choosing growth over comfort, challenge over security, expansion over safety. It means taking on projects scaring you, having conversations you've avoided, pursuing goals requiring you to become more than you are. The key is approaching challenges with the right mindset. You're not trying to prove you're already perfect. You're trying to prove you can learn and grow. You're not trying to never fail. You're trying to prove you can recover from failure. You're not trying to avoid mistakes. You're trying to prove you can learn from mistakes and use them to become better. The fifth pillar is future orientation. This is your ability to make decisions based on who you're becoming rather than who you are now. It's understanding current limitations are temporary and growth potential is virtually unlimited. Operating from this perspective, present challenges become stepping stones, not roadblocks. Most are trapped by past experiences and current limitations. They think, I'm not good at public speaking, or I'm not a leader, or I'm not confident enough for that opportunity. This fixed mindset keeps them stuck because they base decisions on current capabilities rather than future potential. Building future orientation requires regularly visualizing the person you're becoming and making decisions from that future identity. Ask yourself, what would the confident version of me do? Then do that thing. Even if you don't feel ready, act as if you're already the person you want to become. Eventually, you will become that person. The sixth pillar is contribution focus. This is shifting from asking, what can I get? To what can I give? When you focus on adding value, solving problems, helping others succeed, you become less self-conscious and more naturally confident. You're not worried about being judged because you're focused on being useful. Most confidence issues stem from excessive self-focus. When constantly worried about how you look, what others think, whether you're measuring up, you create anxiety and self-doubt. But shifting focus to how you can contribute, serve, and add value makes these self-focused concerns fade. This doesn't mean neglecting your needs or becoming a doormat. It means approaching situations with a service mindset rather than self-protection. Instead of thinking, I hope I don't embarrass myself, think, how can I help this meeting be productive? Instead of, I hope they like me, think, how can I be genuinely useful? The final element is evidence awareness. This is consciously recognizing and remembering your successes, growth, and progress rather than focusing only on failures and limitations. Most have a negativity bias causing them to remember failures more vividly than successes, discount achievements while magnifying mistakes. This mental pattern systematically undermines confidence by creating a distorted view of their actual track record. Combat this by keeping a success journal recording daily wins, no matter how small. Document challenges overcome, skills developed, positive feedback received. Review this evidence regularly to maintain an accurate picture of capabilities and progress, building unshakable. Confidence isn't about becoming arrogant or believing you're better than others. It's about developing an accurate assessment of capabilities and realistic optimism about continued growth potential. It's about knowing you can handle whatever comes, not because nothing bad will happen, but because you have the tools to deal with whatever does. Combining emotional mastery with competence building, integrity alignment, resilience development, future orientation, contribution focus, and evidence awareness creates a confidence foundation unshakable by external circumstances. You become the person who stays calm in chaos, sees opportunity in adversity, inspires others through unshakable presence and authentic strength. Let's apply this specifically to the most challenging arena. Relationships. Relationships are where emotional control matters most and where most fail most spectacularly. You can master emotions in every other area, but if you lose control with those closest, you'll sabotage the bonds that matter most. The people who love you see you at your worst, tired, stressed, emotionally depleted. This reveals your true emotional mastery level. Most relationship conflicts aren't about the surface issue. They're about underlying emotional patterns, unmet needs, unconscious triggers both people react to without awareness. When you learn not to react emotionally during conflicts, you can address real issues instead of getting caught in endless blame, defensiveness, and escalation cycles. The first principle is understanding every interaction is a choice between connection and control. When emotionally reactive, you choose control, trying to make the other wrong, prove your point, defend your position. When you choose non-reaction, you choose connection, prioritizing the relationship over being right. This doesn't mean becoming a doormat or accepting unacceptable behavior. It means responding to problems in ways preserving dignity and creating resolution possibilities, not just venting reactions. It means being strong enough to stay calm when the other is losing control. The second principle is taking responsibility for your 50% of every interaction. You can't control the other's words, actions, or emotional state, but you have complete control over your response. When you focus on controlling your 50% instead of trying to control theirs, you become incredibly powerful in relationships. Most spend relationship energy trying to change, fix, or control partner, children, or friends. This is exhausting and ineffective because you're trying to control things outside your control. Redirecting that energy toward managing your own responses makes you a calming, stabilizing force, influencing others to be their best selves. The third principle is learning to de-escalate rather than escalate conflicts. When someone is emotionally activated, your natural tendency might be matching their energy. They raise their voice, you raise yours. They become critical, you become defensive. They withdraw, you pursue. This unconscious mirroring amplifies conflict instead of resolving it. Strategic non-reaction means consciously choosing to lower the emotional temperature. Speak more quietly when they speak loudly. Become more curious when they become critical. Give space when they're overwhelmed. This counterintuitive approach often breaks negative patterns and creates space for actual communication. The fourth principle is separating the person from their behavior. When someone you care about does something hurtful or frustrating, your emotional reaction tends to globalize the behavior. Instead of thinking they did something inconsiderate, you think they are an inconsiderate person. This generalization makes maintaining emotional equilibrium and finding constructive solutions much harder. Practice seeing difficult behavior as information about the other's current state, not evidence of permanent character. Maybe they're stressed, tired, overwhelmed, dealing with something you don't know. This doesn't excuse poor behavior, but helps you respond with wisdom rather than reactive emotion. The fifth principle is mastering the pause. In heated moments, there's enormous pressure to respond immediately. Silence feels uncomfortable. You feel compelled to defend, explain, or counterattack right away. But the pause is where your power lies. It's where you choose response instead of being controlled by impulses. Practice saying, "I need a moment to think about that," or "Let me consider what you're saying," or simply take 3 deep breaths before responding. These small pauses can completely change a conversation's trajectory and often prevent conflicts. Taking days or weeks to repair, the most advanced relationship skill is emotional aikido. This is redirecting someone else's emotional energy rather than absorbing or fighting it. When someone is angry at you, instead of getting defensive or angry back, acknowledge their feelings and redirect toward solutions. When someone criticizes you, instead of justifying, thank them for their perspective and ask for suggestions. This requires tremendous emotional strength because it goes against every instinct to defend when feeling attacked. But it's incredibly effective because it de-energizes conflict and redirects toward cooperation instead of competition. Remember, you cannot control whether others choose emotional reactivity, but you can control whether you join them. When you consistently choose non-reaction in relationships, you become a stability and peace source others gravitate toward. You become the person others turn to during difficult times because they know you won't add to chaos. This extends powerfully into leadership. Leadership is fundamentally about emotional influence. Your ability to inspire, motivate, and guide others depends far more on emotional mastery than technical skills or positional authority. People follow leaders making them feel confident, capable, valued. They resist leaders creating anxiety, frustration, or self-doubt regardless of how smart or experienced. The most powerful leadership is emotional modeling. People learn more from what you do than what you say, especially regarding emotional responses. When you remain calm under pressure, others feel permission to be calm. When you respond to setbacks with resilience and problem-solving, others learn the same. When you treat difficulties as challenges rather than catastrophes, you teach that perspective. Every emotional choice as a leader isn't just about you. It's about the emotional culture you're creating for everyone around you. Your team, family, organization will mirror your emotional patterns. If you're reactive, they'll become reactive. If you're anxious, they'll become anxious. If you're calm and solution-focused, they'll adopt those qualities. The first skill of emotional leadership is creating psychological safety. This is the feeling people can express ideas, ask questions, admit mistakes, show vulnerability without fear of judgment, punishment, or rejection. Psychological safety is created through your emotional responses to others' imperfections and uncertainties. When someone makes a mistake, your first response sets the tone. If you react with anger, blame, or criticism, you teach everyone to hide mistakes and avoid risks. If you respond with curiosity about what can be learned and focus on preventing similar mistakes, you create an environment where people feel safe to be honest and innovative. The second skill is emotional contagion management. Emotions are literally contagious through mirror neurons and social conditioning. When you enter a room, your emotional state influences everyone else's, often unconsciously. This gives you enormous power to influence any group's energy and productivity. Before important interactions, consciously choose the emotional state you want to transmit. If you want a meeting productive and collaborative, embody those qualities. If you want your team confident about a challenging project, genuinely feel and express confidence. If you want your family peaceful and connected, bring that energy. The third skill is strategic emotional authenticity. This doesn't mean expressing every emotion unfiltered. It means being genuine about your emotional state while choosing expressions serving the situation and people involved. You can be authentically concerned about a problem while expressing that concern motivating rather than discouraging. Sometimes authenticity means sharing vulnerabilities and uncertainties to create connection and trust. Other times it means projecting strength and confidence to help others feel secure. The key is matching emotional expression to what the situation requires while remaining true to core values and character. The fourth skill is conflict transformation. Most avoid conflict or handle it poorly. But leaders must navigate disagreements and tensions, strengthening rather than damaging relationships. This requires seeing conflict as information about differing perspectives and unmet needs rather than personal attacks or character defects. When conflict arises, your emotional response determines whether it becomes destructive or constructive. If you remain calm, curious, focused on understanding different viewpoints, you can often transform conflicts into breakthrough conversations, leading to better solutions and stronger relationships. The fifth skill is empathetic leadership without emotional absorption. You need to understand and relate to others' emotional experiences without taking on their emotional states. This means being compassionate towards someone anxious without becoming anxious yourself, supportive of someone going through difficulties without being dragged down. This balance requires strong emotional boundaries and clear sense of your emotional identity. You care deeply, but don't lose yourself in others' emotional experiences. You provide stability and support precisely because you maintain your emotional center. The ultimate goal of emotional leadership is creating an upward emotional spiral. This is when your emotional mastery inspires others to develop their own, creating a positive feedback loop, elevating everyone's performance and well-being. Instead of managing others' emotions, you're developing their capacity to manage their own. This happens when you consistently model emotional intelligence, provide tools and frameworks for emotional development, celebrate emotional growth in others, create environments where emotional mastery is valued and rewarded. Over time, you build teams, families, organizations emotionally resilient, highly productive, deeply fulfilling. To make this permanent, You need a system. Everything you've learned means nothing unless you create a systematic approach implementing it daily. Most consume emotional control information but never develop consistent practices, turning knowledge into automatic behavior. They understand concepts intellectually but continue operating from old patterns because they haven't created new systems replacing old ones. Your emotional operating system is the set of daily practices, environmental designs, and response protocols making emotional mastery your default mode, not something you must consciously remember. Like a computer operating system runs background managing basic functions automatically, your emotional operating system should manage emotional responses automatically. The first component is your daily emotional fitness routine. Like physical fitness requires regular exercise, emotional fitness requires regular practice. This needn't be complicated or time-consuming, but must be consistent. 5 to 10 minutes of focused emotional training daily creates more transformation than hours of sporadic effort. Your routine should include mindfulness or meditation, strengthening awareness of emotional states as they arise. Include breathing exercises, training your nervous system to respond to stress with calm, not reactivity. Include cognitive work like journaling or reflection, identifying patterns and planning improvements. The second component is environmental design for emotional success. Your physical and social environment enormously impacts your emotional state, often unconsciously. If constantly exposed to negative news, chaotic spaces, emotionally reactive people, maintaining emotional equilibrium is much harder regardless of skills and intentions. Audit your environment ruthlessly. What inputs are you consuming through media, social media, books, conversations? What does your physical space communicate about calm and order versus chaos and stress? Who are you spending time with, and how do they influence your emotional state? Make changes supporting the emotional state you want to maintain. The third component is trigger identification and response planning. You must become intimately familiar with personal emotional triggers and have specific strategies ready for each. This isn't about avoiding triggers, impossible and counterproductive, but having planned responses aligning with values and goals. Keep a trigger journal for 2 weeks. Every time you have an emotional reaction, write down what triggered it, what you felt, how you responded, what you wish you had done differently. Look for patterns in situations, people, circumstances activating you. Then develop specific response strategies for each trigger category. The fourth component is recovery protocols. You need systematic ways restoring emotional equilibrium after challenging situations or high-stress periods. Without effective recovery protocols, emotional challenges accumulate and eventually overwhelm capacity to maintain control. Your recovery toolkit should include immediate techniques usable in the moment, short-term practices implementable within hours of a stressful event, longer-term restoration practices for recovering from extended high stress or emotional challenge. Have these ready before needing them, not after. The fifth component is accountability and measurement systems. You need ways tracking progress, identifying improvement areas, maintaining motivation during difficult periods. This could be a daily rating of emotional control on a 1 to 10 scale or detailed logs of specific situations and responses. The key is having objective progress measures rather than relying on feelings, which can be unreliable indicators. You might feel no progress even when improving significantly, or feel doing well when sliding backward. The sixth component is continuous learning and adaptation. Your emotional operating system should evolve as you grow and life circumstances change. What works in your 20s might not work in your 40s. What works single might not work married with children. What works during stable periods might not work during major transitions. Schedule regular reviews of your emotional operating system. What's working well? What needs adjustment? What new challenges require new strategies? What feedback are you getting from others about emotional patterns? Use this information continuously refining and improving your approach. The final component is integration with larger life systems. Your emotional operating system cannot be separate from other life management systems. It must integrate with goal setting, time management, relationship strategies, career development plans. This means making emotional considerations part of every major decision. Before taking new responsibilities, consider emotional demands they'll create. Before entering new relationships, consider how they'll impact emotional well-being. Before pursuing new goals, consider what emotional skills you'll need developing to achieve them successfully. Remember, the goal isn't creating a perfect system never needing adjustment. The goal is creating a robust system making emotional mastery easier and more automatic while remaining flexible, enough to adapt to changing circumstances. Your emotional operating system should serve you, not constrain you. This system is tested in the highest stakes environments. The ultimate emotional mastery test comes in high-stakes environments where consequences of losing control are severe and immediate. Careers destroyed with one outburst. Relationships permanently damaged by one reactive moment. $1 million opportunities lost because someone couldn't manage anxiety or anger. High-stakes environments reveal the difference between intellectual understanding and true embodied mastery. When everything is on the line, tested beyond comfort, pressure intense, stakes real, your true emotional development becomes clear. The first category is crisis management. When something goes seriously wrong, immediate danger, or significant loss, people look to you for leadership and stability. Your emotional response sets the tone. Panic is contagious, but so is calm competence. In crisis, thinking clearly while others lose their minds becomes a superpower. While others are amygdala hijacked, you remain connected to the prefrontal cortex. While others react to emotional intensity, you focus on practical steps addressing actual problems. This requires advanced preparation. You cannot develop emotional management during a crisis. Develop during calm periods through visualization, stress inoculation training, practice with smaller challenges. By the time a real crisis hits, emotional control responses must be automatic. The second category is high-pressure negotiations and confrontations. Whether negotiating a business deal, handling workplace conflict, dealing with aggressive behavior, remaining emotionally centered gives enormous strategic advantages. People reveal true intentions and limitations when emotionally activated. But they can only take advantage of your emotional reactions if you have them. The key to negotiating emotional mastery is separating ego from outcome. When emotionally invested in being right, getting your way, proving your point, you become predictable and manipulable. When detached from specific outcomes while committed to core interests, you become incredibly difficult to manipulate or intimidate. This doesn't mean not caring about the outcome. It means caring more about process than result, more about maintaining integrity than winning, more about finding solutions working for everyone than getting everything you want. The third category is performance under scrutiny. When presenting to important audiences, evaluated for promotions, competing at high levels, performing while watched and judged, emotional control becomes crucial for accessing full capabilities. Performance anxiety, imposter syndrome, fear of judgment can completely undermine actual skills and preparation. The solution is shifting focus from how you're perceived to how you're serving others. Instead of thinking about looking confident, think about providing value. Instead of worrying about mistakes, focus on executing the prepared process. Instead of trying to impress, concentrate on being genuinely helpful. The fourth category is dealing with extremely difficult people. Every field has manipulative, aggressive, unreasonable, emotionally volatile people. Your ability to maintain your center while interacting determines whether they drain energy and compromise effectiveness, or whether you can work productively despite limitations. The key is not taking behavior personally. Difficult people are usually difficult with everyone, not just you. Their emotional reactions are about internal state, not you specifically. Seeing behavior as information about stress level, insecurity, coping skills rather than personal attacks lets you respond strategically. The fifth category is managing one's own success and failure. Both extreme success and failure trigger powerful emotional responses leading to poor decisions. Success can trigger arrogance, complacency, reckless risk-taking. Failure can trigger shame, despair, and the impulse to give up. Emotional mastery means maintaining perspective and equilibrium regardless of external outcomes. Success is information about what worked, not evidence of permanent superiority. Failure is information about what didn't work, not evidence of permanent inadequacy. Both are temporary conditions requiring appropriate responses, not emotional reactions. The ultimate high-stakes environment is your own mind during extreme challenge, uncertainty, or change. When everything counted on seems falling apart, the future completely uncertain, facing losses or changes, challenging identity and assumptions, your relationship with thoughts and emotions becomes the most important factor in navigating successfully. This is where all emotional mastery training pays off. When external circumstances are chaotic, you become your stability source. When others panic about uncertainty, you become comfortable not knowing. When everyone is overwhelmed by challenge magnitude, you break it into manageable steps, taking one at a time. The goal isn't becoming someone never feeling the emotional impact of high-stakes situations. The goal is becoming someone feeling impact fully while choosing responses serving long-term interests and values, not just relieving immediate emotional pressure. Now, understand the incredible compound effect of all this work. Most dramatically underestimate long-term emotional control impact, because they only see immediate effects of individual choices. They see staying calm during one argument prevented a fight, managing anxiety during one presentation led to better performance, not reacting to one criticism preserved a relationship. These immediate benefits are significant, but nothing compared to compound effects building over months, years, decades. Emotional mastery works like compound interest. Each individual choice responding rather than reacting seems small, but these choices accumulate exponentially. Every emotional control choice doesn't just improve that situation. It strengthens neural pathways, making emotional control easier in all future situations. Builds reliability and wisdom reputation, creating opportunities. Develops inner resources, compounding and multiplying. The first compound effect is relational trust. Every time you remain calm when others expect loss of control, respond with wisdom when others react, choose connection over being right, you make deposits in relationship trust accounts. Over time, these create deep trust reservoirs, incredibly valuable during difficult periods. People know they can count on you when tough. They seek your perspective during challenging decisions. They want you on team during high-pressure projects. They trust you with vulnerabilities and important concerns. This trust level opens doors closed to emotionally unpredictable people. The second compound effect is reputation and influence. Your emotional patterns become a personal brand part, often more important than technical skills or achievements. People remember how you made them feel more than what you accomplished. Consistently demonstrating emotional mastery builds reputation as someone trusted with important responsibilities and challenging situations. This reputation creates a positive feedback loop. You get opportunities requiring emotional maturity. Successfully handling builds skills and confidence. Enhanced capabilities lead to greater opportunities. Over time, you become known for performing well under pressure. Counted on during a crisis, bringing stability to chaos. The third compound effect is decision-making quality. When not driven by emotional reactions, you make consistently better decisions across life. You choose relationships based on compatibility and shared values rather than intense chemistry burning out quickly. Make career choices based on long-term growth potential rather than immediate gratification or fear-based security. Invest money based on rational analysis rather than greed or fear. Choose time spending based on priorities and goals rather than whatever feels urgent. Handle conflicts based on what strengthens relationships rather than what makes you feel better immediately. These better decisions compound into dramatically better life outcomes. The fourth compound effect is stress resilience and health benefits. Chronic emotional reactivity creates chronic stress, devastating physical and mental health over time. Elevated cortisol damages the immune system, impairs cognitive function, accelerates aging, increases major disease risk. Chronic stress literally shortens lifespan. Mastering emotional control dramatically reduces stress, improves health outcomes. You sleep better, think clearer, have more energy, maintain better physical health. These health benefits compound over decades, potentially adding years and significantly improving quality. The fifth compound effect is learning acceleration. When not constantly dealing with emotional drama and reactivity, you free enormous mental and emotional energy redirected toward growth and learning. Instead of spending energy managing consequences of emotional reactions, invest in developing new skills, pursuing meaningful goals, and expanding capabilities. Emotional mastery also makes a better learner, improving ability receiving feedback, handling criticism, learning from failures. When not defensive or reactive, extract lessons from challenging experiences instead of just being traumatized. This accelerated learning creates competitive advantages in compounding. The sixth compound effect is opportunity creation. With emotional mastery, you become the person high performers want working with. You get invited to join important projects, teams, organizations, trusted with sensitive information, critical responsibilities. Gain access networks, relationships, creating advancement and achievement opportunities. These opportunities often lead to more upward growth and success spiral. Each success builds confidence and capabilities, making them ready for greater challenges and opportunities. Over time, access, achievement, and influence levels seem impossible when trapped in reactivity. The seventh compound effect is inner peace and life satisfaction. Perhaps most importantly, emotional mastery creates deep inner peace and satisfaction from knowing, living according to values, responding from wisdom, not fear. Develop inner stability not dependent on external circumstances. This peace is an absence of challenge. It's presence of confidence handling whatever life presents. No external circumstances temporary, ability responding with wisdom and grace permanent. Creates life quality available regardless of circumstances. The ultimate compound effect is becoming antifragile. Not just surviving challenges, but stronger, because every difficult situation becomes an opportunity to practice strengthening emotional skills. Every person trying to manipulate or upset becomes unwittingly training greater mastery. Reaching this development level, become virtually unshakable. Not because nothing difficult happens, but because of unshakable confidence handling whatever does. Become a source of strength and stability for others. A person makes every situation better simply by being present, emotionally centered. Not just personal success, though certainly follows. Becoming a person contributes to raising emotional intelligence, maturity for everyone around. Becoming part emotional reactivity, dysfunction plaguing human interaction. The choice is yours. Continue living mercy of emotional reactions, letting temporary feelings drive permanent decisions, remaining trapped in regret, limitation cycles. Or commit patient, consistent emotional mastery practice, unlocking compound benefits, transforming every life aspect. Time starts now. Not tomorrow feeling motivated. Next week's schedule is clearer. Next year life will be less stressful. Now, because every day delay is lost, compound interest is the most important investment. Emotional development. Inner mastery. And if this resonated with you, help these ideas reach others who need them. Please like this video and make sure to subscribe to Wines of Thought for more content that helps you master your mind and your life. Thank you for watching.